The correct pronunciation of names is important, and here at Rooftop Conversations, I work with guests to ensure that their names are pronounced correctly. However, I mispronounce our guest names in today's episode, and I truly apologize for this mistake. Our guests today are Boosaba Tantisunthorn and Sharisa Sesaweang. Once again, I apologize for the mispronunciation, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
All right. Welcome to Rooftop Conversations. So, in light of the Minnesota uprising, many Asians and Asian American communities in the United States decided to take social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, WeChat. What's the other one? Line that most folks use to basically call in our communities on our anti-blackness, and it was no different for the Thai community as well. We in the Thai community decide to, well, not we, that's not me necessarily, but folks in the Thai community decide to get together and start advocating and, of course, speaking out within color, about the anti-blackness issues within our community. And there's an amazing group that I found on Instagram where I found solidarity in this fight, and I was so happy to be able to meet this amazing advocacy group, this Thai community that I found online. So I'm going to introduce you to two of my next guests, and I'm gonna try my best to pronounce their last names. Okay, so it's Boosaba Tantisunthorn, right? Oh my God, and Sesaweang, also known as TBJ and Risa. And so for folks who aren't Thai, there is an honorific that we do for all of our elders, and because BJ and Risa are my elders, we say P and Nal, right? So it's like siblings. That's how we do it in Thai. We're brothers and sisters, siblings, and we're going to be gender neutral. So please welcome PBJ and Risa to the show. Also, 2/3 of the group ties together on Instagram. So thank you so much, BJ and Risa, for joining me today.
Sawadika.
Sawadika. We're going to be very Thai today. This is going to be a very Thai podcast. You know, Thai episode. I'm so proud to be a Thai American just as much as you two both are. The fact that you started a whole advocacy group just not only to obviously speak out and to be in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and to speak out with like anti-blackness and colorism within our communities, but also to unite the many people within the Thai immigration diaspora, right? Like folks who live all over the United States and beyond outside of Thailand. So, you know, I feel like I'm not going to do justice with describing this amazing group known as Ties Together. So I want to hear from you both. Just tell the audience about you two as individuals and also just Ties Together as a whole.
Sure. I can start, and then Sharisa, you can fill in wherever. So Sharisa and I grew up together at Wat Thai DC, which is the Thai temple in Silver Spring, Maryland. What is really unique about our temple in Silver Spring is that it's like a community center for the Thai community that exists here. When we often think about the Thai community in the US, we're thinking about LA as a big hub for Thai Americans. But it turns out Silver Spring, Maryland is in the top, 3 or 4 as well. So we were fortunate to grow up in this loving temple community with aunties and uncles and Pete and Nong, as you said, brothers and sisters, to shape who we are. Personally, I have been involved with a lot of Thai things throughout my life. I've come to reflect. Having grown up at the temple, I was involved with Thai classical dance and Thai folk dance, which is my favorite. Also, Thai classical music and language class. When I went into high school, I still repped Thailand hard. I was part of the Asian American Club, Thai Student Association in college, Thai Alliance in America after that, and now part of this. Obviously, being Thai is central to who I am. It's how I show up in the world, and it makes me really proud to be part of an effort like this with Sharisa. And I'll hand it over to Sharisa, and maybe she can talk also about how we kind of reconnected to establish Ties Together.
Absolutely. So with what has been going on PBJ and I, we follow each other on Instagram. We actually haven't talked that much in real life, but with what's been going on, it's reconnected us virtually, and it's been so amazing. So she's always posting such amazing things, and I'm like, oh my God, PBJ, that is so true. You Asian people or Thai people in general, we have to show up for those that are outside of our community, and that got us talking about. So what's going on with the Thai community? We know what it's like. We know that there is anti-blackness amongst the Asian community. So we were like, we were raised with so much love and warmth, and from the Thai community. We need to make sure that our aunties and our brothers, sisters, P, Nong, Tukon, everyone knows what's going on, and we have to make sure that we join hands and move forward, supporting one another.
No, definitely, and I agree. I think like this was BLM has been around for ages. This is something that's not new, but it's definitely something that really took on a larger like place because of like the Minnesota uprisings and things like that, which really opened the conversation for a lot of non-black folks, both white and of course non-black POC, to really talk about this issue. And it's really great that you both like started ThaisTogether, because I like, as a result, right? Like, so I saw a lot of like groups were like Chinese Americans or Japanese Americans or Desi Americans, but nothing really specific for the Thai community. Because like, once again, right, Asian Americans for Black lives, like we're not a monolith. I think like we all have different issues, and the way we navigate and advocate for those communities are very, very different. And so the fact that you both started a Thai specific group is super important, right? To bring in the conversation to the P, the Nong, the Yai, the Tha, which is grandpa, and grandma in Thai, or like, the Lung, the Nas, the Bas. This is really like the aunties and uncles. It's really important to bring these people to the conversation, right? Because these are deep rooted, issues in our community. These are what people grew up with, what I mean, including ourselves. And, it's important for us to kind of deconstruct that together as a community with love, with love, with acceptance, with like understanding, with communication. And it's so important that the work that you both do. So, which leads me to my next question. I mean, you touched on it a little bit, that like, you wanted to do this, you wanted to do ThaisTogether to kind of speak out against injustices within our community. But like, what was like your main motivation to really get this going forward, to not only talk about BLM but also issues within our own community? Like, what was kind of the motivation between like the both of you, and of course your third founding member as well? Like, why did the three of you decide to start this now?
You want to go first on this one?
ได้เลยค่ะ absolutely. So for me and PBJ, I think it would have to be the frustration of not seeing, Thais being out there and, sharing our voices and our frustration of what's going on, the injustices. So that was definitely a starting point. And we wanted, our voices to unite. So all the Thai PP Nong Nong, we wanted to, make sure that, hey, something's going on and we need to join hands.
If I can add one thing, just because we started this group and this initiative, this letter to our aunties and uncles and friends, doesn't mean that, by any means we think we're the experts on this topic, right? But we think that we have an opportunity to open up a conversation. And so we took a risk. Like, when we hit publish, we were both very nervous about what the reaction.
Yes.
I woke up so early the next morning to see what kind of questions I'd have to field, what kind of sticky situations I'd have to try to handle. But the response has been positive.
No, and like it definitely is a risky thing, right? I think it's like this is the first time we're really like talking about this to not just like within our internal families, but to the world, right? It's like, we are Thai Americans here too, and we meaning like us as a community, not necessarily the three of us, but like we as a community are saying something, and it is scary. I like, you know what I mean. But the three of you did a great job with like really putting that out there, and like the graphics are amazing. The community has been like awesome. I think like I've gotten to know much more Thai folks because of the ThaisTogether platform than ever in my life. And like, it's been super amazing to not only connect, like, right, like you said, right, you're not the experts on this, even though you published the letter that kind of engages and starts that conversation. You're not the experts, but the fact that there's a community allows us to learn more from each other. So eventually, that we become, I don't want to say experts. I don't think anyone could ever be an expert, a total expert on something, but at least you're going to go forward in that conversation. You grow as an activist, or you grow as an advocate for a community. So, like, the fact that you have this, like, ThaisTogether virtual online community, I'm learning from you, PBJ, I'm learning from Risa, I'm learning from the different other folks that you featured on there, whether it's me through, like, DMing them or me through, like, looking at their posts. I'm learning something more from the folks who are within this community. So it's like, you don't have to be the expert, but the fact that you're starting this is so important. It's like the greatest work that you both can do. And of course, your other co-founder as well.
Yeah, maybe we can give her a shout out right here.
Yeah, definitely.
Natural break, Rita, go for it.
Candy occasional-ish, and then Candy NS.
Yeah, I think she does great work. I've seen the graphics, and they're so adorable, so amazing. And I think that's what I love about ThaisTogether, right? It's not academia, it's not like academic language, it's accessible information for us to bring to our communities, right? It's something that, you don't have to be an attorney, you don't have to be a policymaker, you don't have to be, this and that. It's accessible information for our community. And when it comes to activism, right? If your activism isn't accessible, there's no point to it at all. And I think the three of you did a great job with that, with ThaisTogether. So, like, shout out to, is it P Candy? I'm gonna do. Okay, yes. P Candy, that for doing that work. So thank you so much. If you're listening, thank you so much for the work that you do. So I'm gonna move on to my next question. So why is a movement like this, or like a page or an advocacy group like this, especially in digital online space, super important for the Thai American community, and also like Thais outside the United States, outside of Thailand? Like, why is something like a virtual space like this super important?
พี่ปีเจก่อนไหม
Okay. So, earlier I mentioned being raised in a really warm Thai community. And, like, I will forever be grateful for that. But when I think about what existed outside of that community, I found that there wasn't really a lot of spaces for Thai people. You look to communities like the Korean community or the Japanese community, other communities who have been here much longer than Thai immigrants, or even more recent than Thai immigrants. And I do see a lot of representation. Well, a lot is not exactly right, but I see representation. And I was looking, I've been looking for something like that for many, many years. And so it came to a point where I think I realized, maybe we're the ones that we've been waiting for. Maybe we are the ones who have to create that platform for people like us. Because these things don't just exist. They don't just show up. It starts at the grassroots. And so ThaisTogether is our small effort that we hope will make a difference in the lives of people, to help them feel seen, to help people feel heard, to affirm some of the experiences that they've had in their lives, and to help us rally around causes that are meaningful to us, like Black Lives Matter.
Shaila, PBJ, that's absolutely it. Representation matters. I want kids to grow up knowing that there are Thai people to look up to. We have so many phenomenal people like Oh Joy. She's awesome, and she's also following us. So that was a big milestone for us. But, growing up, I didn't have many Thai people to look up to. I mean, Thai people in Thailand, awesome. But what about Thai Americans? What about people that are here? We didn't have that. So, moving forward, PBJ and I and Candy, and our community and what platform we have, we want to make sure that kids can see, wow, they're Thai. Just like, I'm Thai too. She's Thai, he's Thai. We want that, that sense of being very proud and represented. Nala.
Absolutely.
No, and that is really like, actually that relates to why I even like, not only like obviously because of your activism being outspoken for BLM, but also this is the reason why I decided to join Ties Together, because it was a group where, so like you said PBJ, right? You grew up in a Thai community that was very warm and very loving. You had a support system that was like really lifted you up as a Thai person. I unfortunately actually had the opposite experience. So before this interview, I told PB, so I have a shirt that says Neck Thai, PSA, and it's my undergraduate institution. And I was like, PBJ, I got the shirt, but I was never in the Thai Student Association. Like, it just like never. My friend got it for me. I was never a part of it, and it was interesting because for me personally, I always felt excluded from the Thai community. While I did go to the same experience, I went to Thai school, learned the language and all that. As a fat person in the Thai community, especially a fat girl, a fat woman, I felt outcasted by a lot of the elders and the folks because people would make fatphobic comments about myself, and that space for me wasn't safe, right? Going into a space where folks would literally attack who you are felt like made me really excluded from the community. And it wasn't until like honestly as recently as a quarantine that it really took for me to want to come back to the Thai community and be like, all right, let's mobilize with the folks that do look like me, represent me, um, and not only with just Ties Together, but during this experience, I reconnect because of Rooftop Conversations, was able to reconnect with two young Thai women that I grew up with, and we kind of were like, yeah, the issue here is like people used to pit us against each other because of the internalized misogyny within our community. But I'm going on a tangent here. That being said, what Ties Together did for me personally, and this is like you said, hopefully this will make a difference, right? It made a difference for me. It definitely did, where I was able to talk to Thai folks who are like, okay, these are the problems we see, right? We have the anti-blackness, the colorism, the fat phobia, the homophobia within our community. These are things that were perpetuated and have made the community kind of like unsafe for not only folks outside our community, but even folks within our community as well. But we're here to change it, and the fact that you gave myself this platform and so many other Thai folks who may have had these experiences a platform to want to change and call in our community has been amazing. And like like you said, right, PB saw, but both of you have said representation. I mean, Asian representation in the Western world is already really bad. The fact that like I have to make a joke that if I ever have a movie made about me, that I'm probably going to be played by Scarlett Johansson, and that's a big possibility. Is kind of sad as the way we're going with Asians in media. I tell people all the time, like, if there's one person that has to play me, it's probably going to be Scarlett Johansson. I think that's it, or like Emma Stone. That's probably going to be who's going to play me. I think so, but that's another question about how bad Asian representation is. But that being said, right, like growing up, I didn't have okay, like I want to go into politics and that's what I want to do. And like there's rarely any Asian folks in that in that field in general. We do have one Thai senator, and everyone in the Thai community really rallies behind her and wraps her. But just having one Thai senator isn't enough for me. I want more. Like I want to see more than just like Senator Duckworth has done great work. I think personally for me she's a little too centrist for my personal beliefs, but the fact that there's representation there is great. But I need more. And the fact that you showcase amazing Thai people, right? The fact that you showcase not just the stereotypical Thai person or whatever that stereotype may be for a lot of Westerners, but you like showcase so many interesting intersectional Thai folks. Like the fact that like you showcase a Thai fashion designer that I didn't even know existed. I was like, there are Thais in fashion. I didn't even know that. So the fact, like, that's like representation is so important. We still touched on this a bit, right? Where we're using this platform to talk about different things within our community. So, like, how can we as Thais work to deconstruct these like problematic beliefs in our community, right? The anti-blackness, the colorism, the homophobia, classism, xenophobia. How can we do this? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm also asking this for myself too. Like, I'm asking, how can I do this as a Thai person, a Thai like social justice minded person do this to call in my community, both online and offline.
ชลิสาก่อนไหม
พี่เจ๊ก่อนไหม
You know, I mean, May, those are the hard questions that people of all different backgrounds and all different areas of expertise are asking themselves. How do we deconstruct these isms that are so ingrained in our society that we were raised to believe, you know, whether through our own families or through messages we hear from society and the media, however we may receive them. I don't think there's an easy answer to that. But I think that we can all do our small part, small, large, you know, whatever part feels right for you in starting these conversations. And, you know, for some people that may mean putting together a piece of art about the importance of voting that you publish on your Instagram page that, you know, then gets shared. For somebody, it may be literally calling their family in and having a conversation around the dining room table. For somebody else, it may be organizing friends to go into, you know, the city that they live in to be in community with others and demonstrating. I think that everybody has a lane that they can choose to do this. And for us, I would say that community is our activism, and working together to identify somebody who can kind of spearhead that conversation for us, and then we can all kind of rally and get behind them is what our model might look like going forward. So I know that you've demonstrated some interest in talking about fat phobia within our community. Like going forward, we'd love to work with you to come up with materials that we can share widely with our audience so that we can all start reflecting a little bit more
Yes.
our own views on this type of thing. Because, I mean, I think the first thing in tackling any of these isms, racism, colorism, anything is internal, right? Like, how can you go out in the world and ask somebody else to change their mind if you haven't fully confronted yourself?
Yeah.
ใช่ค่ะ so we wanted to use our platform ThaisTogether pretty much to unite our creative voices. So using creativity to unite rather than divide and address these issues, you know, all the isms. We haven't done so yet, but we are going to, you know, but we're excited. And, you know, honestly, the easiest thing to do, reshare, repost, see it, understand it, and then make sure that, you know, you repost it, because that's the easiest way. If, you know, you are not someone that likes to, you know, talk about these or confront these, I think the easiest way right now of social media is making sure that using your own space to make sure that these issues are being addressed through a story or, you know, any type of social media highlight.
Yeah. No, I think Risa, you really bring up a great point about the creativity, about resharing, reposting. Because I think for a lot of us, like sometimes we don't have the words. Like there's like these big, grave issues, these serious issues that sometimes you're like your thoughts are running like 5 miles in your head. You're like, what do I say? What do I say? And sometimes like having a graphic that just encompasses your thoughts really well, just to share it is great. And like people, I know like people are saying like, oh, like there is a problem with putting up graphics and cute little pictures and aesthetically pleasing things online just for social justice purposes. But I think there is some value in that. Right? I think like for a lot of us as humans, we're drawn to something that's aesthetically pleasant, and you know, it's a fun way for us to kind of start that conversation, to use art as a healing platform, to use art as a way to convey that message. And, you know, like it's just, you know, for us to share that image, and once again, right, comes back to accessibility, right? ThaisTogether does a great thing where it's super accessible to the everyday Thai person, right? Not someone who has, you don't have to have a PhD in sociology, you don't need to be a policymaker. It's super accessible for folks. And I think that's what Ties Together does. And I'm going to like shout out your co-founder, P. Candy, because I think that's your graphics person who really does great work at doing this. And that's important to have. It's just like the creativity and doing all that. And I also want to say to PBJ's point, right, about your different lanes. I think that's an affirmation, right? To be like, we don't all have to do the same. There's no one right way to be an activist. There's no one right way to start a movement. Like bringing in that point about that affirmation, that you can do whatever makes you feel comfortable to play, however large, or I don't want to say small, because I don't think there's small roles, but however you want to perform or activate, like be an activist or organize, whether it's online, offline, in the protest, demonstrating, creating something like Ties Together, sharing something on Ties Together, creating a piece, doing art is super important. And everyone in our community is different, right? We all have different skill sets. We all have different experiences. We all have different viewpoints of where we, how we fit in with the bigger dialogue of being Thai, right? Being Thai, there's no one Thai voice. There's many Thai voices, and we all have to take our roles in it as well. Which is going to lead me to my next question. So once again, right, Asians aren't a monolith, and even within our own ethnic groups, we are not a monolith, right? There are different Thai experiences out there. You have Thai folks who are recent immigrants to the United States, Thai folks whose parents have been here for generations, Thai folks who are LGBTQ, Thai folks who come from different class statuses, Thai folks who may face different experiences, being Thai. So with all these differences in our community, how can we unite everyone under like one umbrella, or at least like get us all together to kind of work together towards one cause? How do we do that, and have you faced any challenges in doing so?
So, in our most recent post, Nong May posted this beautiful comment of saying, even though we're born in America, we have Thai blood running through us. So that was from your mom. My mom said the exact same thing. I'm sure that a lot of our mothers or our parents in general have said that to us. So with that, we need to celebrate that. Regardless how different we are, we celebrate that Thai blood in us, and we rep it hard. And that's what we're doing. PBJ, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to underscore your point, Nongmei, in your question about how there are so many diverse experiences within the Thai community that I won't ever pretend to understand, right? Whether you are somebody who is a quarter Thai, or you're somebody who grew up in Thailand and migrated here when you were a teen, that's a very different experience. And I think, though, that there are some common feelings that we have deep down inside, being Thai in America, that can be opportunities for us to come together and just like understand one another. And to be honest, I forgot what this question was, but I will make a point, which is that until we feel like we can show up wholly, like whole as our whole selves in spaces, we shouldn't stop. Like, it is important for us to be in community with people who make us feel like we can talk about intergenerational issues we've had with our families, and our lunchbox stories, going to school and bringing your Thai food or whatever. I think there's a lot of healing and community that needs to take place, and reflection that needs to take place, so that we can all be our whole selves and then show up in the world as the awesome people that we are, with our gifts and talents and our voices.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think like that point about one thing that we all have in common, whether regardless of our different like nuances and experiences, we're Thai, right? We're Thai. We're proud to be here. We're proud to show up, represent. To the fact, like I think I always say this, like your existence, especially in a world that doesn't want you, is resistance, right? And it's like whether it's you showing up with like pad thai. Okay, well I did this in high school, so I don't know if anyone else did, but like I have pad thai for high school, right? That's like an act of resistance, right? Um, or showing up to your law school graduation in like a sabai and a Thai flag, that's the resistance. Which I did that, like that's like
It
really like
looked
the most.
amazing.
Thank you. That like yeah, but like just like showing up for the or like even just like speaking Thai in public, right, to our parents, like or one story that I can resonate growing up, right, like in elementary school, my dad would pick me up from school, and he's like, "Oh, that's why I thought T Paul." I don't know if I'm sharing this. Basically, it's like ตอนที่เห็นพ่อหรือถ้าเห็นแบบคนที่ older than you or things like that ต้องไหว้ you can't just like both move, right? So it's basically like, for those who can't speak Thai, this is where my bilingual brain is going like, okay. Basically, my dad used to say like, for Thai folks, when we say hi, we don't wave, we don't shake hands, we why, which is this is like the traditional bowing with the hands. I don't know how to say it in English, but like, and you say sawati. And my dad always said, when you see me in front of your school, don't be embarrassed. Just why say sawati to me, and because that's who we are as Thai people, right? And that even is like an act of resistance, right? Speaking Thai, being Thai, unapologetically being like Thai, however you even express it, right? Whether it's through your art, your the flag that you represent. I know for a lot of Thai folks, they wear the pla on their like for necklaces, or even like a picture of the different kings and things like that. That's showing Thai pride. In a way, especially in a world that like doesn't really like understand really like Thai culture and like more as a whole Asian culture as a whole, Asian culture in general. And yeah, I think like the both of you have done super amazing work. You're definitely two people I look up to as Thai leaders. I mean, in my opinion, you both are leaders in the community that are doing this work and leading the way for the conversations to be had. So thank you so much for being one, taking that risk, right? I didn't even know you guys, like, you both were like terrified about publishing it, because this is like an act of like, you're putting yourself, you're being vulnerable, but like you're brave enough to do so, right? Not everyone has the ability to put themselves out there, and the fact that the three of you did that is really an act of bravery, and it shows leadership within our community. So thank you so much for doing so. And then, so to wrap up, not before we wrap up, I want to ask you two personal questions about yourselves and your experiences. So you both are Thai women born in the United States, and I want to hear from your own words, how was your upbringing like as a Thai American growing up in Silver Springs, Maryland, growing up in the United States, and like how was it like to balance these two cultures, right? Balancing like the Western world and these ideas of what it is to be an American, whatever that means, and then being Thai, holding on to like the language, like our mother country and our mother language and things like that. Like, how has that been like for the both of you?
I have to say, my cousin once told me she was born in Thailand, raised in Thailand, moved here when she was, I think, perhaps 15 and 16, and she recently told me, Sharisa, I don't understand, like, you are so Thai for, a Thai American, for someone to be born and raised here. I rep Thai so hard. And, she's always been amazed by the fact that, wherever I am, Thailand runs in my blood. And I make sure that, I radiate that everywhere I go, because I am just so proud of it. Because going back when I was young, my mom made me malak. I think that's bitter melon soup for lunch, and she would always tell me, Lisa, this is very nutritious, it's healthy, this is like, the best thing that you can eat. And I hated it because going to school, my American friends were eating sandwiches or, Lunchables, and it did smell. And one day my Tupperware fell out of my lunchbox, and, teachers were like, whose Tupperware is this? And I just sat silent and still and terrified, because everyone was like, ew, what is that? What is that green vegetable in that soup with that bone and that pork? And, looking back at it, my mom spent hours making me that delicious meal that is nutritious and healthy. Why did I have to feel ashamed because it wasn't a sandwich, because, it looked foreign. Things like this, it makes me appreciate, who I am so much. And, it takes time to reflect back on things and, our experiences and stories and to grow from them.
100%. So for me, I give a ton of credit to my mom for not only raising me in a country that she didn't grow up in, right? Like, supporting me to go to a university system, like all these things that are just like incredible for our immigrant parents to be able to help us with. But I give a lot of credit to my mom because she was the one who really forced me to go to the temple when I didn't want to go, who forced me, this is loving force, right? Like tough love, who insisted that I eat a meal of rice every day, despite my desire to just eat mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and French fries for the rest of my life. Now I'm an adult and I can choose those things, Mom. But as a young person, right, like these were like small acts of defiance that she quickly was like, girl, like you are Thai, nah? And like in our house, you will speak Thai. And it was just, I was very lucky that she put so much effort into making me understand what it meant for her to be Thai, for us to have the privilege and the means to be able to go to Thailand and be among a culture where you blend in, where people look like you. Like that was probably the one of the biggest gifts that I had growing up, was being able to travel to Thailand, and actually feel motivated to improve my Thai so that I could connect with my family and others and read the signs and go shopping and get a good deal.
Yeah,
right?
no, Thailand is notorious for having like the phalang. What is it? The phalang price and then the Pad Thai price. So, you can make sure you know your Thai. Yeah,
Exactly. So like there was definitely a rub, like you were expressing, between like choosing to go the easy route, which is like, just like do what I could to blend in. But then there was this voice saying, girl, don't forget where you came from.
Yes.
So there was a kind of balancing act I played between being your average high school student, in the most kind of neutral way, and then going to the temple on the weekends and being Thai AF. Like, everything we did, playing music like lampat, kon, like extra Thai. So I think that there was kind of like a double life happening.
Yes, absolutely.
And what I'm trying to figure out for myself at this age is like, how can all of that be just merged and be one? And how can I just be who I am?
Yes.
No, definitely. I think like those stories really resonate with me as well, which is like, I went like in elementary school. My friends used to be like, "Why do you have to go to school on Sunday? Like, isn't that like a rest day? Like, can't you just like enjoy your weekend?" And like, I also didn't understand it until like, oh, why out of all my friends who gets like watch TV and stay home, why did I have to go to Thai school and learn like Gawkai, Kalkai, like all that stuff, learn a language that I'm not gonna really use, but like growing up as an adult, right? I really do appreciate it. Thai is actually my first language. I actually didn't speak English. I did speak English, but it wasn't my first language. Thai definitely was something that was like, same thing as like I think one of you said, right? Like, my body, keptภาษา Thai, right? In this house, we only speak Thai. My dad used to say like, you know what? ในบ้านนะพูดภาษาไทยกับพ่อแม่แต่พูดภาษาอังกฤษก็พูดได้แต่ว่าข้างในบ้านพูดภาษาไทยอย่างเดียวเพราะว่า เราก็ต้อง like I don't know if preserve, but like we talk about like we have to preserve who we are, preserve our language, right? And like Okay, granted, sometimes like my reading and writing isn't the greatest, but like the fact that, oh my god, see, whenever I do interviews or rooftop conversations with other Thai folks, the brain switches and I'm like, oh, should I just speak in Thai or should I just speak in English? And then I forget that I have to translate a bunch of things. um, but that being said, like I remember, like even though isn't really it's reading and writing isn't my strong suit, right? Like the fact that and like or like I would complain about going to Thai school on Sundays. I'm glad to be able to read like Thai names off of the menus, right? I'm glad to be able to communicate with folks in like even in not just in Thailand but even in Queens, like in New York, right? Like lots of Thai folks were like, oh, like oh, พูดภาษาไทยได้เก่งจังเลยว่า like พูดได้ like that close that like I can like speak to like the different aunts and the aunties and stuff like that. My grandma, she speaks limited English, and the fact that like I'm one of the few of her grandchildren who can communicate with her actively in the language and understand her allows me to be much closer to my grandmother. You know what I mean? That's like a big deal as well. And like it's just like the fact that I have these gifts and also like once again, right, as like someone who wants to go into policy and wants to do that, I'm able to, talk to Thai folks, like, what's the problem that you're facing in your community? Why is it so important? Like, why is a certain issue important to you? And then, like, using that and advocating, like, a main, like, I don't know if main stage platform, but, like, advocating that in, like, bigger arenas like City Hall or bigger arenas like the courts or something where, Thai folks can be heard because, like, I can understand language. And, yeah, I think it's, like, it's really common for a lot of Thai folks. It's, like, having to balance two cultures and making it one and making it who we are. I think that's one thing like I love about being Thai is that all of us are like extra proud of being Thai. Like we are so like it's like we really do love being Thai. It's like it really is like the pride is really radiating for all of us.
One more thing, like just to bounce off of what you just said. I think all of us humans, Thai, Salvadorian, West African, whatever you are, like we're all multi-dimensional people, right? Like being Thai is definitely core to who I am, but there's so many different identities and there's depth to people. And if we can show up in the world with our depth, like dude, that's dope. Like we can all just feel love, give love, make cool things. I would say one more thing is that I read this quote on LinkedIn once. It was something along the lines of, as children of immigrants, we are natural anthropologists. You know what? Like we are constantly code switching. When we're in a Thai space, when we're in a space where, there are no people who look like us, or who sound like us or think like us. I think that as people who have grown up having to adjust to different spaces, like we have the ability to code switch pretty naturally, to get a feel of like, how do things work here? Who holds power? How are decisions made? How do people interact with one another? What does humor look like in this culture, right? Like what is funny? What is taboo? I think that that's something that naturally as children of immigrants in a country that was not yours, you kind of learn to navigate. And for many of us, I think that is a superpower.
No, and I agree. I think you bring up the code switching is like a really interesting concept. It's like you have to kind of be like, all right, if you're in a Thai space, you got to be Thai. You got to be very like your demeanor even changes in a way. And then when you're in a more less Thai space, you act a certain way. You have different things. But I think interestingly enough, I think a point that I feel like I'm speaking from my own experiences. I have had the experiences where I've brought the different parts of the cultures and like kind of brought them to the other side, right? Like I've been in Thai spaces, so like you know, outspoken. I was never shy. I don't know what happened to me. Like I never really broke out of the shell. I was just like the nasty or the egg mom. I don't know. I just was never shy. I don't know what happened. but I was built that way. It was weird. So like I would always be in Thai spaces and like all elders would be like, oh, คนนี้เขาพูดเก่งจังเลยเขาแบบlike like they're always like which means like oh she's so outspoken she's always so vocal about things and like for Thai folks right for a 10-year-old to stand up to an elder and be like you're disrespecting me for like calling me fat that's taboo that's like a no but me being I think it's the Brooklyn plus the not being shy put together, right? Like I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where people are like, if you disrespect me, I'm gonna have to talk back because no matter, like in a respectful way, obviously, but or like even speaking up for things, right? I would be in Thai school, and there would be a lot of students who'd be afraid, and I'd say, "Give me the mic, let me just say something what I have to say." Like I don't, and like, but I think like me, my upbringing in New York City, where it's a little, New York. I don't know how to explain it, but it's very New York. And bringing that to well, yeah, I'm like I don't really know how to explain it. There's like a way New York, and you bringing it to a Thai space, right? Like having that, and people being like, it's a little different, but I commend her for doing that. And then on the reverse, Thai folks, right? Community comes first, family comes first. Their family can look not just like, your mom, your dad, your siblings, but it can be your community and bringing that sense into the Western world, especially in the United States where everything's so individualized and everything's about individualism and doing this, bringing that into my practice as an organizer, bringing my practice as an activist. I'm not an activist, I'm just saying like in general, as someone who's opinionated about social justice issues. I take what I've learned from my parents and my culture about looking out for each other and bringing that into a space in Western culture. We don't talk about that. So that's I think about the code switching up. That's just a super interesting experience. So we're coming up on our hour. You both have been super amazing. So just a few disclosure for everyone. Before we started, they were both like, we're so nervous. We've never done this, but they're like amazing at this, which is the case for a lot of my guests. Everyone's just super great at doing this. And thank you so much for sharing these deep experiences and like being so vulnerable on this space with me. So thank you to you both. Is there anything that you would like to promote? I know I will definitely promote the ThaisTogether's page, but is there anything else that you would like to promote in this space, either from you two as individuals or as ThaisTogether?
I think directing people to our Instagram page is awesome, which is at ThaisTogether. That's where we're doing our best to elevate diverse Thai American experiences. So once you get there and you learn about amazing artists and creatives and innovators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that are in our community, give them a like and follow too. That would be amazing.
And you don't necessarily have to be Thai to follow this page, right? Like I said, it's like anyone is free to follow this page. Like this is it. If you want to learn about Thai culture outside of these like stereotypical Western things that people have, follow ThaisTogether. They're amazing. There's like you get to learn about Thai desserts. Like I get hungry looking at their page. Like I'm just like, okay, this is not the space for me today.
So yes, follow us at ThaisTogether. It's definitely more than a space of, let's take it back. What do Americans know us as? We have wonderful beaches. We have amazing, Pad Thai, but there's more to us than just Pad Thai or our amazing beaches. IKEA has a collaboration with a popular Thai brand called Greyhound. We have so many wonderful news that's going on with, in the world, and we want to make sure that that's being seen and heard, and for, everyone to just feel like, wow, this is pretty amazing. So that's who we are, and moving forward, it's always to celebrate these, these small nuances, these joys, these news, whatever makes, your heart happy.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is gonna be a hot take, but I don't think Pad Thai is the best Thai food. I think there's better stuff out there. Not my favorite, but that's gonna be a hot take for everyone. I think that's not, it's not my most favorite Thai food.
But Thai is not popular in Thailand, by the way.
It's not. Okay, I call it like my mom's lazy day food. Like it's literally like when she just doesn't want to cook and doesn't.
Exactly.
It's just I don't think it's good. I think like Gang Dai No Mai is like my favorite. But the is my favorite.
Yes.
Or my number one favorite in the world, Som Tam with Camille.
Are making me
I know.
hungry.
I'm so hungry right now. I haven't even eaten all day, and that's why I can't look at your page. Like, the one thing that Ties Together does is they'll ask you if they feature about like which dessert are you, and like the other day they put raw mint, which is I don't know how to describe it. It's like this noodle type of thing, and like coconut milk. No, not raw mint. No, that was my thing. No, salim.
Salim.
But like the salim is this dessert. I don't know how to explain it for a Western audience. It's like there's like noodles and it's like in different colors. It's really cute and colorful, and it's in coconut milk, and it's the best thing ever. Like, oh my god. Okay, but anyway, I can't look at their
Yes.
kids. They're always talking about desserts. I'm like, I love Thai desserts so much. But anyway, and okay, so actually, and then one last question before we wrap. If you two had to be a Thai dessert, what would you be?
Dude, I haven't answered this question myself. I've only asked it. Do you have one in mind, Sharisa?
This is so hard, being put on the spot.
It's funny because I asked you guys like a lot of questions, and this is the one that really. And like, you know, like, I asked a lot
Because
of
there's so many amazing Thai desserts, you know, I want to be them all because they're all awesome in their unique ways.
This is the stumper, huh? Okay, I got one.
Yeah.
Okay. I know the shape, I know the color, and I know where to buy it here. I forget what it's called, but it's gold. It's originally like influenced by Portuguese.
Oh, is
Like,
Milk.
no.
Actually, I like the flour one.
Yeah. The tong yip. You have to like, you have to keep the.
Is it tong yip?
yes.
Tong yip. What is it? Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
You have to like keep the thing. Yeah.
Yes, I really like tong yip. It is something I
Oh.
always begged my mom to get me from Hung Fat, this Vietnamese grocery store in Thailand.
Silver Spring Girl right here.
Yes. You know, I would say that it is shaped like a flower, and my name Boosaba means flower.
Mm-hmm.
Also, syrupy sweet, which I can be on my good days. And yeah, because of its like Portuguese influence, I think that speaks to how I am both Thai and American.
Yeah.
The influence and the convergence of cultures.
Hey, tong yip. Yeah. That's the wedding dessert. That's what I know it as, the wedding dessert. Yeah, my mom said it's like you have to look like gold. You put that to the wedding to like symbolize fortune. So my mom always used to make that for people's weddings. Yeah, I don't know. This is what my mom told me. So
You said good fortune?
yeah, like good fortune. You know, like you're married to have a lot of money and wealth. I don't know. This is what my mom said.
Hey, I like that too. Marriage or bring on the wealth.
Bring on the wealth. Yeah. All right. Does TV star have one yet?
I do. I wouldn't say it's full Thai, but to anyone that's ever been to Thailand, at a 7-Eleven, or even when you're at home and you hear this ice cream man sound, I think it's walls or halls. I am a popsicle at the 7-Eleven store because growing up, having one gave me so much joy. So, you know, when kids get out of school, they always get a popsicle and it brings them joy. And I hope that I bring everyone joy when I am around them.
You do.
I love those responses. You two have been a pleasure to speak to. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, follow Ties Together. They're both amazing. The artwork's great. And you know, this is our time for representation, right? Like, we're going to take it into our own hands. And of course, like, we also want to stand in solidarity with, you know, Black Lives Matter, and of course, other movements as well as the Thai community members. Because, like, you know, right, like, our community is a big, important part of our culture. And we want to extend that not just within our Thai community, but also other folks out there. So thank you so much for sharing.
Bye. Thank you, Nome.
ขอบคุณนะคะ